And tonight, a special Sky News investigation, Big Shots, Anti-Vaxxers Exposed, will interrogate the truth behind the anti-vaccination campaign. Jane Hansen is a journalist at News Corp and she joins us live now. You've really delved into this really kind of murky underworld, but not so underworld at the moment, Jane. So thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
How well funded and organised is this anti-vax movement?
Well, remarkably well funded. I mean, you wouldn't think there was much money in it, just with the little groups. Well, there's a proliferation of groups online in Australia, but the big people are pretty much being funded by America, where most of the content is coming from, most of the mashed up content is coming from, the misleading content is coming from. I think Children's Health Defence is one of the big areas, Robert F. Kennedy is one of the guys behind that. It has assets of 32 million.
Wow.
And and Wakefield's people that produced Vaxxed, they're very well funded by hedge fund billionaires, the Seltz family. So there's big money behind it, and there's big money in scaring people. So, you know, as soon as the pandemic started, I mean, anti-vaxxers have been complaining about vaccines for years. Thankfully, most of us have ignored them. But as soon as the pandemic started, the volume went up enormously, 300% engagement up by last May, I think, which is when I started to research what was going on here. So we take a deep dive into a bit of the history of the anti-vaccine movement in Australia, who's pulling the strings, what sort of misinformation are they using, and some of their tactics when they attack people that question their narrative. They can be pretty vicious, I can assure you of that.
Yes, I'm sure you've felt that very keenly indeed as you've done this documentary. You mentioned Andrew Wakefield. Now, it really all started with him decades ago. He has a lot to answer for here and he hasn't changed his beliefs. But from what I remember, he seized on a report in a medical journal and then it was amplified by the New York Times at the time. But then the medical journal really admitted that the published work was deeply flawed, but it didn't really matter because the thing had run away, hadn't it?
Yeah, I mean, 1 in 10 parents, this is according to Associate Professor Margie Dansham, who deals with vaccine hesitancy, 1 in 10 parents still think there's a link between autism and the MMR vaccine, which was Wakefield's original theory, which got completely panned after it was found that he changed the dates of some of the vaccinations. He concocted a condition that didn't even exist. He accepted money from the lawyers that were secretly representing these children. I mean, he was found wrong on every count, and he was offered the opportunity to redo his study with a gold standard study, more children. He refused to do it. He's since doubled down, moved to America, and is making more anti-vax films, which are so thin on the ground with facts, but they manipulate tiny kernels of truth and make it a whole paddock, which is what the ABN and Pete Evans and Taylor Winterstein do for a living, pretty much.
Yeah. Look, Jane, as I see it, the anti-vax movement has always been there. It's always been bubbling away. But with the advent of social media, the ability to disseminate information and really find your people on the internet to, I guess, confirm your own bias, it is much worse. Now, throw in a pandemic and there's big problems there. So how have you found Facebook, social media, Twitter, whatever it is, has that really grown the anti-vax movement in popularity? Does it have a lot more members than it would have done 10 years ago?
Yeah, exponentially grown, 700% growth in that region. And now that all legitimate news has been removed, I suppose it'll go up even more. So you had some big names like Pete Evans and Taylor Winterstein and the Australian Vaccination Risk Network, but there's also a proliferation of these other little groups that are popping up everywhere, like Reignite Democracy and Freedom Fighters. They all are anti-vax. I mean, they're not just questioning safe vaccines, they are anti-vaccines. Because I don't have a problem with questioning a vaccine. This is a new vaccine. We want to know if it's safe. There's no point in having an unsafe vaccine. We all want a safe vaccine. But some of the misinformation that's being spread is just ludicrous. Last night I logged onto a new one called Adverse Reactions Against mRNA, which is the Pfizer vaccine that we're getting. And there was a post there from Instagram from a woman who said her father-in-law had it and now he was unconscious in hospital 20 days later, clearly from America. I just did the most basic journalistic check and checked the person on the Instagram, and it was a fake account, 0 followers, 0 posts,
Wow.
0 following. So I put that on that Facebook site. I said, hang on, guys, this is a bogus account. And they blocked my comment. So this is what you're dealing with.
Wow, that's shocking. And this is a big argument against Facebook as well, and its inability or unwillingness to stop some of these fake accounts and misinformation. But Jane, fascinating documentary. Can't wait to see you tonight, and that will be at 8 p.m. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Anti-Vaxxers Exposed. Big Shots, it's called. 8 p.m. tonight, Australian Eastern Daylight Time, right here on Sky News.